Designing Magic the Gathering sets has always been something that has fascinated me, as there's so many considerations that go into every part of a card and of the set as a whole. But there's been this shift as of late that I've noticed, a difference in design philosophy within recent years. You see, there are two core patterns for crafting a set, and those are top-down and bottom-up design, or flavor first versus mechanics first. And in the last few years, Magic has leaned more into top-down than it ever has in its history. It's a question I had to get to the bottom of, but I knew that before I could come to a conclusion, I should first have a better understanding of these concepts. And really, that's why I put this video together, as a way to not just uncover the complexities of these design principles, fascinating as they are, but apply what I've learned to answer the very question that set me on this quest. So join me as we talk the principles of top-down versus bottom-up design in Magic the Gathering. While top-down and bottom-up design are terms you will find throughout different mediums and practices, from programming to architecture, their definitions change depending on the context. In the case of Magic the Gathering, top-down and bottom-up design is a reference to the entry point of conceptualizing a set. It's best to think of it like this. Top-down is a way of designing a set that focuses on an idea rooted in flavor first, a concept that is either cultural or has some strong thematic resonance, while bottom-up is a design principle rooted in a mechanical theme that the designers wish to enact. Examples of top-down sets would be Innistrad with its focus on gothic horror tropes and stories, of Theros and its reimagining of Greek mythology, or Thunder Junction and its reliance on famous tropes of spaghetti westerns. Bottom up, on the other hand, is in many ways the default design pattern in Magic. Think of how the original Zendikar block was a focus on land matters, antiquities, and artifact focus set, or of the original Ravnica block, which was brought to life in order to give the game a strongly identified color pair set with a heavy focus on cycles. This concept is best explained by Mark Rosewater himself during one of the episodes of his Drive to Work podcast.
Okay, so where does top-down come from? Now, so if you look at a Magic card, the top of the card is the title, then there's the art box, then there is the card type line that has the subtype, has creature types, then you get to the rules text, then you get to the power toughness and the legal text and collector number. Well, the top half of the card has the vast majority of the flavor because the title and the name and the creature type are all on the top half of the card. So a top-down design is, well, I know what the name of the card is and kind of what it looks like, and I'm trying to match the flavor of the card making the rules text. Where bottom-up is, I have the rules text, now I figure out what the flavor is going to be.
What Mark does by pointing out this connection is help us conceptualize these design principles at a granular level, by using a card itself to help explain how this sort of design mindset plays out. What I'm trying to show you with these examples is that the difference between top-down and bottom-up design is a matter of approach or methodology. And really, that's the best way to think of it. These design patterns are used as a practical way of starting your design, but then bridge into the rest of the card to form a complete product. This approach is then applied not just at the card level, but at the set or block level in order to create a complete experience. Now, I know my audience, and I'm sure you've picked up on some things that I've not directly spoken to, some patterns and ideas inherent to these design philosophies. Hold on to those, as this discussion will only get deeper as we go.
This is important is part of doing top-down design. The reason to do top-down design is that it plays into the concept we call resonance. And what resonance says is, I, as any kind of creative person, but especially the game designer, I'm trying to connect with my audience. I want them to be invested in the game so that they are excited, right? That you want people to experience something and you want them to feel something. One of the tricks to doing that is to take things that your game player already understands because they have lived a whole lifetime. They have all these experiences. If you tap into pre-known experiences, what happens is you are piggybacking, if you will, on emotional things they already have, emotional feelings they already have.
At the heart of top-down design is the concept of resonance, in that what a top-down set aims to do is meet the player where their expectations lie. What this means is that the designers wish to tap into established ideas, whether real or fiction, and piggyback off of our expectations, which then resonates with us on an emotional level. To achieve resonance, the designers rely on the principles of communication theory, which is merely the branch of knowledge dealing with the principles and methods by which information is conveyed. Those three principles are comfort, surprise, and completion. And while these are key to top-down design first and foremost, which is something that Mark reinforces throughout the podcast we listen to a snippet of, I do think that there is some truth to the fact that bottom-up relies on some of the principles within this as well, even if it's to a lesser degree, as there must be some form of resonance within the actions we take within a set and how it affects us through gameplay. Comfort is the core pillar for designing within this concept of resonance, a base, if you will, that must exist before either surprise or completion can be considered. Comfort in the context of design states that for a top-down set to work, it must lean on the familiarity of expectations. In that if there is a gothic horror set, let's say, what would be the tropes or concepts that the player base would expect from this idea?
Let's say, for example, we just did Ikoria, which was Monster World. Okay, we're doing Monster World. What does that mean? What do people expect? What are the tropes people associated with it? What are the TV shows and the movies and what are all the things people have done that interact with the place we're playing with?
Comfort is the meeting of the players where their expectations lie. It's presenting an idea at a glance and allowing them to fill in the blanks with their own knowledge. Therefore, understanding and leveraging these anticipated motifs is put front and center in the design of a set and is crucial when designing in top-down. Because by its very nature, for flavor to work, we must understand its references and ideas. That said, it does also work the other way around, even if it is not to the same degree. If we go back to the Odyssey block, comfort is achieved by meeting players' expectations of a graveyard-focused block. So mechanics like Madness, Flashback, and Threshold all meet the player where their expectations lie for this mechanical theme. While bottom-up is less about being referential, like top-down is, it still needs to provide the players with what they expect from a product in a mechanical sense. To further reinforce this comfort, whether in a top-down or bottom-up set, the core concept must be felt within the common and uncommon rarities of cards, meaning that you must establish your idea early and often to ensure comfort. Once you've achieved comfort, then it's time for the second pillar, surprise, as you don't want to just hand the player a dish with everything they've already seen before. The idea is to put that Magic the Gathering spin on it. But surprise only works when comfort is established, as surprise for its own sake is merely chaos, and thus becomes unsurprising. For instance, Theros took the idea of Greek mythology, but instead of just providing one-to-one gods, they took some of what was expected and added in fresh elements, like taking the analog of Zeus, the leader of the gods, and merging it with the sun god Helios to create something new in Heliod. We can appreciate the surprise because we understand the base of the reference. These elements are the Magic the Gathering twist. It's bringing what is known into a new world that feels magic, and not directly copying the thematic source. The final principle is completion. You see, it's not just about the individual pieces. You cannot think about the design of a set in isolation of a single card. The truth is that for these design principles to have any footing, the designers have to be conscious of how every individual piece fits together. Even if tight top-down design is accomplished in a card like Cleric class, it would be meaningless or at least have little impact in a set like Streets of New Capenna. This means that for these design principles to work, it has to be conceptualized at a set level, then applied at a per card level in order to accomplish completion. While these principles are the bedrock of top-down design and, to a lesser degree, bottom-up design, top-down can be risky because it has a greater reliance on resonance, as it can lead to a set failing if the theme or concept does not immediately make itself known or doesn't have emotional connection with a wider audience. A perfect example of this is the original Kamigawa block. Mark Rosewater talks specifically about this failing in his article Making of a Dynasty, where he said, "The creative itself was a little too faithful to an aspect of Japanese mythology that the majority of the audience wasn't familiar with. So to a majority of the audience, it read less Japanese and more quirky. All in all, while it was a cool plane, we didn't execute on it as well as we could have. And again, I want to stress that this was our first time doing this type of top-down block design. As you can see, without the foundation of comfort through widely understood ideas, the next two principles had no footing. I believe that is why when we returned to Kamigawa, they instead worked within the space of Japanese pulp culture and widely understood Japanese concepts from the stories that they share with the rest of the world. This is because comfort only works when the source is widely understood, making resonance a complex issue that relies on both being something done faithfully while also being based on a concept that players would recognize. Of course, the set had its own mechanical issues, but I think this is one of the best examples of how important resonance is when it comes to top-down design, and the potential pitfalls of such an approach.
This is a sort of an animal top-down set, if you will. Meaning we said, okay, we want to capture the, like, when we're on Innistrad, we're capturing Gothic horror. When we're on Theros, it's Greek mythology. Well, here, it's animal. We're top-down animals. And so we did everything we could. The mechanics feel like animals. The way the animals play feel correct. And we just made something that is very endearing. And
This all leads me to why I even wanted to talk about design in the first place, and to really learn more about what it means to do top-down design, as I believe we are currently in an era where top-down is being leveraged more than it ever has before. If I think back historically to what top-down sets existed, they were quite rare. Theros, Innistrad, and the original Kamigawa, but now nearly every modern set is top-down. Think Thunder Junction, Murders at Karlov Manor, Wilds of Eldraine, Neon Dynasty, New Capenna, Forgotten Realms, and of course, Universes Beyond, which are by their very nature top-down sets. But where did this heavy reliance come from? Well, I have a couple theories. My first theory as to why we see more top-down than bottom-up comes down to Magic's move away from blocks. You see, with being on a plane for only one set, the designers have to establish the identity of that world in one go, which is a challenging task. So if they can instead rely on established ideas, then some of that work is outsourced to our comfort in those ideas. You can just say, hey, this is a cowboy set, then put a magic coat of paint over it and build out on those expectations. While a bottom-up set would have to rationalize its mechanics in a world purely of the designer's imagination, which is a lot of work. Not that they are not capable of it, because we've seen amazing sets and worlds built from the bottom up, but it does pose its own problems in the context of a blockless world. Then of course there is the elephant in the room, Universes Beyond.
The one brightest spot for Hasbro was Universes Beyond Lord of the Rings, which is already the best-selling Magic set of all time.
The CEO of Hasbro has confirmed that we are going to be getting 2 Universes Beyond sets a year.
What is the Universes Beyond collaboration that you don't want to see? Me personally, Universes Beyond Gordon Ramsay, because I don't need people...
As we continue to see more and more of these sets, we must settle in with the idea of top-down design, as these sets are there to meet our expectations of other IPs. But the issue here is that these sort of sets abandon one of the principles of communication theory, in that they rely heavily on comfort and completion, but abandon surprise, as there can be no surprise when what the set must accomplish is accommodating expectations, and nothing more. These two factors, both the saturation of Universes Beyond and of the single set rather than the block, has put us into a place where Magic is not defined by its mechanical identity, but rather what it can mirror within its own worlds. It's something I neither like nor dislike. I mean, Magic does it so well, but perhaps there is something to be said about Magic moving away from a mechanics-first perspective to a flavor-first one. My second theory is that Magic has done it all. What I mean is that how can it really sell you on a graveyard set, a land matters set, or any other of the mechanics-first sets if it has all been done before? By starting with flavor and selling you on that, they can work to rationalize that flavor with mechanics that suit it, rather than the inverse. You see, in the beginning, everything was fresh, and players were hungry for mechanical sets that gave them new tools. But now that all those tools have been built, how can they really get us excited about them all over again? When both these theories I have spoken of come together, then it's really no wonder why we find ourselves in the top-down era we are in now. For good or bad, this is modern Magic, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Magic brought me in because of its originality of ideas and its strong gameplay, but when what it becomes is just a mirror rather than a new concept, then perhaps a focus on top-down can pull us away from what made us fall in love with this game in the first place. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to get down to the comments to hear your thoughts on this topic. Which design principle do you believe is better, if either can really be better? If you want to learn more about the fascinating complexities behind designing Magic the Gathering, then check out this playlist here. And with that, friends, I will catch you in the multiverse. Bye.